There are separate age limits prescribed. Lord, what are we doing?
No, but see,
No, my lord, it's not that, my lord. There are certain issues, my lord, which are better left to the discretion of the parliament. Your lordship's, my lord, concern, the government shares.
You are underestimating the impact which your argument is having on us. Don't underestimate the impact which your submissions are having on us. And now
Societal relations, acceptance of any relationship in the society is never dependent either on legislation or on judgments. It comes only from within. Let us accept it, whether we like to accept it or not. But leave it at that. That's, my lord, more on my lord, other philosophical aspects. Your lordships are persuaded to take up Special Marriage Act, possibly, my lord, on the ground that in one of the section the word used is spouse. My lord, my respectful submission is this, and kindly, a person, my lord, not a spouse. My lord, my respectful submission is this, and kindly, my lord, examine this correctly, a little, my lord, closely. Even Special Marriage Act, and I will show, my lord, if I have to, my lord, at the subsequent stage. The legislative intent of the legislature throughout has been a relationship between a biological male and a biological female, including Special Marriage Act.
But Mr. Solicitor,
Number one,
there's a very important value judgment which you are making, that the very notion of a biological man is absolute, or that a notion of a biological woman is also an absolute notion.
Never change.
Which is incorrect.
the only biological man means biological man. It's not a question of notion.
Positives of rights.
Yes, of course it is.
None of us.
There is no absolute concept of a man or an absolute concept of a woman at all. That's the
Lord,
whole
I am-
argument in a broader constitution.
Biological man, my lord, means man only. It means, my lord, biological man. It's
Biological
not a
man is
matter
not a
of
definition
notion.
of what your genitals are. It's far more complex. That's the point.
We stop having rights if we are not a biological.
So even when the Special Marriage Act says man and woman, the very notion of a man and a notion of a woman is not an absolute, based on what genitals you have.
Lord, biological man means genitals you have. Lord, I didn't want to use that expression.
That's a point of view.
Lord, another thing, for man, irrespective of other attributes than the genitals, there are separate age limits prescribed. Lord, what are we doing? That's not an argument. That's not an argument.
But we said it is not a mandatory thing that the whole society must accept something. Changes have always come in.
But your lordships will have to examine whether marriage is a fundamental right. Right to marry, divorce the law is a fundamental.
That's what I want to establish. No?
Lord, only a minute.
What
Only a
else do you
minute.
want to
Lord,
establish?
only a minute.
Seeking to confine.
Lord, I know my difficulties. Lord. I know my difficulties, but I am still discharging my duty. Lord, there are several acts. If the notion is treated to be a guiding factor to decide man or a woman, then I will show several acts which your lordships would unintentionally make non-workable. I may have, my lord, genital of a man, but if I am otherwise a female, my lord, as my lord possibly trying to be suggested, then, my lord, how would I be treated under the Criminal Procedure Code? As a woman, my lord, can I be called? For 160 statement after a particular hour, I may say that this is only a notion. I may have a biological genitals of a man, but now I am a woman. Well, there are several issues, my lord, which have to be gone into. Better they go into be gone into by the parliament. And your lordships, my lord, kindly appreciate. But the parliament, we have good eminent parliamentarians on both sides, and I can say this based only on my reading. Parliamentary committees are not, my lord, acting the way in which, my lord, we see parliaments functioning. Parliament committees have all parties as members.
The lighter side, they say that real work is done in the parliamentary subcommittee.
Yes, yes. My lord, they call witnesses, they call expert witnesses, they call stakeholders, they decide.
We have, both Justice Kaul and I, we have engaged with the department-related parliamentary committee. I chair the E-committee, Justice Kaul chairs NALSA. We have engaged extensively with the parliamentary committee. In fact, part of the reason why we have this huge support now for the E committee is because of the
I know, I'm
bipartisan
aware of.
support
In
which
a different
Parliamentary committee
capacity,
gave
I'm
our
aware.
work.
Right. But see,
No, my lord, it's not that, my lord. There are certain issues, my lord, which are better left to the discretion
we
of the
got.
parliament. Your lordship's, my lord, concern, the government shares.
I have a point.
No discrimination, no breach of privacy, right of choosing one's sexual, my lord, orientation, everything is taken
But
care of.
Mr. Solicitor, you are underestimating the impact which your argument is having on us. Don't underestimate the impact which your submissions are having on us. And now it's our turn now to put those problems to Mr.
My
Rohit
lord,
when he
Another,
addresses us.
another aspect, my lord, another aspect.
We know where we are
We
trying
can
to
find
find.
the-
We are also
I'm
trying to
fully
see where we can
confident,
draw the
my lord, I'm
lines.
fully
how-
confident. I'm fully confident. Only a minute more, only a minute more.
You may continue. I'm only saying they came with a broader canvas, much broader canvas. We are saying we are unwilling to go into the broader canvas. We are not willing to go into the broader cost. We are not willing to go into personal laws issues. We are not willing to go into ABCD. Therefore, they have agreed to, for the time being, confine it only to the aspect which we are willing to rule on. And it cannot be said we must rule on everything. We are only willing to rule on that aspect. If that is the only remit which we are willing to consider, then actually their arguments or your arguments, you may have arguments whether it can be done under this act or not, whether even what is being sought to be canvassed by them should be left to the legislature to consider whether they would like to get into it. But the remit or the contours of the argument will thus have to be restricted only to the extent we are willing to consider the issue. It can't go beyond.
I'll just
That's all
give
I'm
an
saying.
example why I'm saying this. I'm just giving an
And
example.
it is
Live
still
example.
open to you to argue in response that don't go into even this limited
different
remit.
aspect,
That
correct.
is again a
I'm
issue
obliged.
which
I'm
we
obliged.
are more
Lord,
than
what
open
has
to
happened
hearing.
is,
There's no
what has
difference about
happened
it.
is this. In Navtej Johar, when the limited question was decriminalization of Lord, section 3, X mentioned in 377, the central government very carefully filed an affidavit that we leave it to the wisdom of the court. We are not, but there we did say in no uncertain terms and recorded by your lordships that this is not an issue where we were even remotely touching about other issues of marriage, etc., etc. But as my lords have said, the window of marriage did open there. Now, today your lordships may not go into the question of personal laws, but the window of that personal law will open. Lord, ultimately, your lordships are dealing with
Mr.
a
Solicitor, we cannot ever bind future generations after we are
That's
gone.
exactly
And
my
the
submission
deeds
is.
are dusted and done.
Lord, that's
That's the task for the future generations.
Lord, that's from
Whether
that's
it's
my
the legislature or the court, I mean, we leave it open to
Lord, that's
future
my
generations to run
I'm
the
saying
country with the
no,
sense of
I'm not
wisdom.
saying your lordship would bind. Your lordship would never bind. That's the majesty of the court. But your lordship's not going it right now and giving some lord, considering giving some relief, would not mean that your lordships have never gone. That would, my lord, open another. That's all okay, my lord. That's okay. But
It's quiet, it's the ground.
ultimately, my lord, your lordship will have to consider, but this even special marriage act does not prohibit. And entry 5 concurrent list is agnostic. It's not on personal law. It's a law of marriage. It's not Hindu marriage, Parsi marriage, or Muslim marriage. It's a law of marriage. It's their right to legalize, not to legalize, provide for many things, etc., etc. And therefore, my lord, again, I am reiterating that my preliminary application, and there is a reason why I am repeatedly reiterating, my preliminary objection be taken up first, and your lordships may issue notice, my lord, to all the states. I'm reiterating that request with a purpose, my lord, with an intention.
All right, we'll reflect on it at lunch and we'll take a call. Certainly, we'll now that you.
May I have 2 minutes, Bruce?
Yes, Mr. Dedi.
Admirals, adopting everything which my learned solicitor says, Bruce. About the canvas, Bruce. So far as the Special Marriage Act is concerned, even if Lord this court, I'm assuming Lord the lordships are inclined to update it or read in something in this act, Lord, so as to accommodate Lord the interests of the petitioner. Even then, Lord, the first of all, the preliminary issue would be whether, my lords, the heterosexual unions with whom they are seeking equality, Mr. Rotagi himself said that if your lordship holds that they are equal, then the issue of reading in, etc., arises, my lords. Without first going into